What's up, everybody? Welcome to Neon Mushroom. Welcome back if you're returning. I'm Adrian, and today we have some EDH gameplay for you. So let's just jump right into what decks everyone's going to be playing and some opening hands.
First up, we have Aiden playing Greven, Predator Captain. This is actually one of Guy's decks. He'll be keeping a 7-card hand of Soul Ring, Blessing of Beslanok, Devour in Shadow, Badlands, Castle Locktwain, Urborg, and Smoldering Marsh. Then we have Jake returning with his Kalamax, the Stormsire deck. He'll be keeping a 6-card hand with Rampant Growth, Factor Fiction, Mystic Sanctuary, Mountain, Yavimaya Coast, and a Misty Rainforest. Then we have another one of Guy Scott's decks being piloted by Guy Scott himself. He's playing Niv-Mizzet Parun. He's going to keep 3 mountains, an island, Polluted Delta, a Dockside Extortionist, and a Vandal Blast. And I'm going to be playing my Dragonlord Ojutai deck. I'm going to keep a 7-card hand with Skycloud Expanse, Windswept Heath, Reliquary Tower, Plains, Sigarda's Aid, Stubborn Denial, and Stonehewer Giant. Alright, Aiden wins the die roll, so he's going to go ahead and lead on Badlands, right into a Soul Ring, and then he's going to tap the Soul Ring to play an Expedition map, passing over to Jake. Jake will just draw and play a Misty Rainforest, and then Guy's going to play a basic Island as land for turn. I'm going to draw, play a basic Plains as my land for turn, tapping for white to play Sigarda's Aid, and before I can pass back to Aiden, Jake cracks his Misty Rainforest, goes to get his Triumph, and we pass it over to Aiden. After untapping his lands and drawing a card, he's just going to drop a Smoldering Marsh as land for turn, shipping it back to Jake, who's going to go ahead and play Yavimaya Coast as his land for turn, tap for 2, one of them being green to cast Rampant Growth. He'll get a basic island into play, tapped, and pass over to Guy, who just drops a basic mountain and passes to me. I'll draw, I'm going to go ahead and play a Windswept Heath and try to pass back to Aiden, but he has an action. He's going to crack that map and go get a copy of Hall of the Bandit Lord and add it to hand. With one of the best lands in the deck in his hand, he's going to draw a card and just play that Hall of the Bandit Lord, shipping it back over to Jake, who will draw a card and play a basic mountain as land for turn. He's going to cast his commander, but before he can pass, I'm going to Swords to Plowshares his commander, bringing him back up to 43 life. Shipping over to Guy, he's going to play an island, tap all of his mana, and play Captain Lannery Storm. At which point he's going to go ahead and tap it to attack Aiden for 2 damage, creating a treasure token, and then shipping the turn to me. Before he can, I do crack my fetch for a Prairie Stream, and then I'll untap my lands, draw a card for turn, and I'm just going to drop Skycloud Expanse as my land for turn, and pass the turn back over to Aiden. With one of the best lands in his deck in play and untapped, he'll just drop an Urborg for turn, tap 5 mana, one of them being the Hall of the Bandit Lord, giving Greven haste. He lost 3 life, so Greven's an 8 power creature, he hits Guy for 8 commander, and then Jake untaps. He's going to play a Survivor's Encampment as land for turn, tap 2 for a Farseek. That's going to find a copy of Breeding Pool. It'll come into play tapped, and before he can pass to Guy, I'm going to tap 2 mana and flash in Ring of Thune using Sigarda's Aid. With no other actions, we move to Guy, who's going to move straight into combat and hit me with Captain Lannery Storm. This will deal me 2 damage and give him an extra treasure token. Then I'll drop a basic mountain as land for turn. He'll play Dockside Extortionist. That's going to do a quick count of artifacts and enchantments, move him up to 5 treasure tokens, and then he's going to lose all those treasure tokens, tap a basic mountain, and play his commander so he can block Greven next turn. I'll untap my lands, draw a card, I'm just going to play Adakar Wastes, and then I'll ship it to Aiden. Aiden will just untap his permanents and draw a card, then he'll play his land for turn as a basic mountain. Now he's going to Devour in Shadow Niv-Mizzet here, who will trigger and deal damage to me after Guy draws a card. He is going to swing at Guy for 10 commander damage, but he could have done that better in tapping the Hall of the Bandit Lord and losing 3 life ahead of time. That would have killed Guy. Unfortunately, he missed it, so Jake's going to go ahead and draw a card, tap out, and play Kalamax once again, passing the turn over to Guy. After untapping, Guy's just going to tap 2 mana, red, and he'll play an Izzet Signet and just pass the turn over to me. I'm going to draw a card, I'm going to play a Reliquary Tower's land for turn, and time wipe the board. That'll remove all the problems that we have for now. We're going to move it over to Aiden, who will untap and draw a card for turn. Aiden will go ahead and play Cabal Coffers as land for turn, which is a little scary because he does have access to Urborg at this point. Then he'll play his commander, it has haste, and an extra 3 power, so that's good enough to kill Guy, and then we move it back over to Jake, who's going to untap all of his permanents and draw a card for turn. Jake's going to tap 4 lands, and he's going to cast the classic Factor Fiction. He's going to choose me as the player who splits the cards into 2 piles and reveal Rapid Hybridization, Cultivate, Steam Vents, Reiterate, and Baral Chief of Compliance. I'm going to put the Rapid Hybridization and the Cultivate into 1 pile. Jake will take those and bin the rest. At that point, he's going to go ahead and play Mystic Sanctuary as his land. It'll come into play untapped and put Factor Fiction back on top of his deck. I'll play my land for turn as Hallowed Fountain. I'll shock it into play, tap out, play my commander, and I'll attach Ring of Thune to Ojutai, shipping the turn over to Aiden. Now, anyone who knows anything about Greven knows that Aiden's pretty set up to do some messed up stuff this turn. He leads by tapping the Hall of the Bandit Lord to lose 3 life. play his Castle Locktwain, and then he's going to use Soul Ring to activate Cabal Coffers, making 7 black mana. He'll use some of that black mana in conjunction with the Castle Locktwain to draw a card, losing 6 more life, and then he's going to move to attacks and try to hit me with Greven for 14 commander damage. Before he can, Jake's going to tap 1 blue, and he's going to cast Rapid Hybridization, targeting Greven, but Aiden's quick to respond with Pyroblast. That's going to counter the Rapid Hybridization, and before he can even move to combat damage, Aiden will tap 1 black and cast Blessing of Bezlanok, giving his commander +2/+1 and lifelink. That'll give me 16 commander damage, and Aiden will gain 16. Moving on to Jake's 7th turn, he'll draw a card, and he's going to tap 3 mana. He's going to use that mana to cast Cultivate, and with that Cultivate, he's going to get a basic island and a basic forest. The island will come into play off of Cultivate, and then I'll play the basic forest as land for turn, passing over to me. Knowing that I'm in an all-out race with Aiden at this point, I'll trigger the Ring of Thune, giving Ojutai a counter, and swing Ojutai at Aiden. That's going to trigger Ojutai. I'll functionally cast Anticipate off of its trigger, keeping 1 card in hand and putting the other 2 on the bottom. Then I'll cast Stoneforge Mystic, searching my library for Fire Shrieker, and I'll try to pass the turn, but Jake does have an action. He's going to tap 4 mana and cast that Factor Fiction once again. Targeting me, he'll reveal Cinderglade, City of Brass, Cryptic Command, Noxious Revival, and a Command Tower. I'll split the command and the revival into 1 pile, which he will take, and I'll bin the lands. While I sit here wondering if I'm going to end up regretting giving the piles to Jake the way I did off of Factor Fiction, I'm going to play Shizo Death Storehouse as land for turn, and activate his Cabal Coffers. This is going to give him 8 black mana. He's going to use some of it and activate the Storehouse to give Greven Fear. Then he's going to use some more of that mana and cast Exquisite Blood. Before moving into attacks, he's going to activate his Castle Locktwain. That's going to deal 4 damage to him, and he's going to draw a card, meaning Greven now has 9 power. He's going to move into combat, but before he can declare attacks, I will use 1 white mana to Path to Exile the Greven. Now once I do that, he'll get a basic mountain into play tapped, and then he's going to move to his second main phase and play Font of Agonies, passing the turn over to Jake. After untapping all those lands and drawing a card for turn, he'll play and crack Scalding Tarn. This will deal damage to him. He'll put a basic mountain into play untapped. Then he's going to float a whole bunch of mana, and he's going to cast his commander Kalamax for the 3rd time this game, passing the turn over to me. Now I forget my Ojutai trigger here to give him a counter off of the Ring of Thune, but that's fine, I remember it in a moment. I'm just going to tap 2 mana and activate Stoneforge Mystic, putting Conqueror's Flail into Ojutai, meaning that my opponents can't cast spells on my turn. I'll put Fire Shrieker on Ojutai. The attach is free because of Sigarda's aid. I'll move to combat and hit Aiden with my 9 power commander, twice because it has Double Strike. This will kill Aiden and trigger Ojutai 2 times. After resolving all of these triggers, I do play Sea of Clouds as my land for turn. Unfortunately, I missed that it's supposed to come into play tapped. I only have 1 opponent left since Aiden did die before I play my land for turn. Then Jake's going to tap 4 mana, one of them being the Survivor's Encampment. That way he can tap his Kalamax and cast Force of Vigor. Kalamax will trigger and he will get a copy of the Force. At that point, he will choose to target all of my available artifacts and enchantments. That is going to be my Fire Shrieker Ring of Thune, my Conqueror's Flail, and my Sigarda's Aid. I choose to try to Stubborn Denial one of them, but then he's going to tap 4 mana and he's going to cast Cryptic Command, choosing to counter the Stubborn Denial and draw a card. At that point, I have no additional responses, so the stack resolves. All of my artifacts and enchantments hit the bin, along with Stubborn Denial, Force of Vigor, and the Cryptic Command, and then he passes back to me. Feeling pretty awful about that blowout from last turn, I'll play Corehaven as my land drop for turn, and I'll attack Jake with my commander for 7 damage. With no responses, I'll trigger Ojutai, keeping 1 card from my hand and 2 to the bottom of my library. Then I'm going to tap 3 mana, and I'm going to cast myself a Trophy Mage. This will let me go get an artifact from my library with CMC 3. I choose Haunted Cloak to go to my hand. I'll try to pass, but before I can, Jake will cast Noxious Revival, trigger his Kalamax, get a counter on the Kalamax, copy Noxious Revival, and with the first one he'll target Force of Vigor, and with the second one he will target Cryptic Command. He's going to put his cards on top of his library, leaving the Cryptic as the card all the way at the top and the Force directly underneath it. After putting that Noxious Revival in the graveyard, he's going to move over to his turn. Moving on to Jake's 10th turn, he's going to untap all of his mana and draw a card for turn. Then he's going to play Holdout Settlement, and finally remember to untap his commander. Then he's going to tap 2 more mana and play Runechanter's Pike. Now I have no responses to this, so once it resolves, he's going to tap some more mana, and he's going to attach Runechanter's Pike to his commander. I also have no responses to that. But when he goes to attack me, I do have a Corehaven, so I'm able to fog out his commander for the turn, and then before passing to me, I sneak in that Haunted Cloak using Stoneforge Mystic. Going into my turn 10, I'll untap all of my permanents, and I'll draw a card for turn. After some contemplation, I'm going to choose to tap 5 mana, and I'm going to cast Stone Hero Giant. Now Jake has a response to the Stone Hero Giant. He's going to tap for 3 blue and a colorless, and he's going to cast Cryptic Command, copying the cryptic command with his Kalamax, giving it an additional counter. With both cryptics, he's going to choose to tap my team and counter the Stone Hero Giant. With no available actions, I just pass the turn over to Jake. Now you guys can't see this, but Guy's actually still sitting at the table as we record this game, so he has to watch as Jake resolves his own copy of Niv-Mizzet Parun and passes the turn over to me. Moving on to my 11th turn, I'll draw a card, and I'm going to try to use 1 mana to attach my Haunted Cloak to Ojutai, which does work, but when I move into combat, Jake has a response. He's going to tap some mana and cast Force of Vigor. It won't be copied, but it will trigger Niv-Mizzet, dealing a damage to me. He'll draw a card, and he'll use the Force to destroy my Haunted Cloak. After bidding the Haunted Cloak, I'm going to go ahead and move into combat and attack Jake for 7 commander damage. He takes it again, so I trigger the Ojutai, look at the top 3 cards, put 1 in my hand, and the other 2 on the bottom of my library. Moving to my second main phase, I'll tap 3 mana and transmute Muddle the Mixture. I'll use that to go grab a copy of Grand Abolisher and add it to my hand. Before I pass the turn, I'll tap 2 more mana, and I'm going to go ahead and cast Azorius Signet. With no further actions, I ship the turn over to Jake. Now Jake's going to go ahead and untap a crap load of lands and then draw a card for turn. At that point, he'll play Stomping Ground, shocking it into play, and he's going to attack me with his Kalamax. I fall for it, I'm going to Fog Kalamax using my Core Haven, then he's going to tap all of his mana and cast Expansion Explosion for 8 2 times. That's going to trigger Niv-Mizzet, which deals damage to me, and then I die to 16 damage from Expansion Explosion, leaving Jake as the victor of today's game.
In hindsight, I could have played that game a lot better. Here at the end of the video, I'd just like to shine some light on some of the plays that may have been made, maybe take a look at how everyone's decks did, and just kind of give some comments about the game in general, or talk about anything else I feel like talking about. First off, a few of you are watching now, and I have a question about the playmats that we're using. Some of you guys might already know, those are called Spellgrounds, and they're just these cloth playmats. They're pretty minimalist. They don't have like super vivid designs like a lot of the Ultra Pro or any of the other rubber playmat designers or makers. They're not like those. They're pretty minimal. I personally like them. I collect them. That's why we just have some. And I know that they're not for everyone, but I'm interested to see what everyone thinks about just the overall aesthetic of how the game looks from a top-down view. Using those, I think it gives a little more contrast from the mats to the cards themselves, but that's just me, and I could be speaking from a point of being super biased towards those playmats, so definitely let me know. Now the first deck I'd like to talk about is Guy's. He did not do so well, and I don't feel too bad about that because he won the second game we uploaded on this channel a couple weeks back using his Niv-Mizzet Parun deck. So this week was not as good for him. There's not really much to say. He played a land drop almost every turn. Something I thought was interesting, he kept a 3 mountain hand and missed his 5th land drop. That means we knew he had a mountain in his hand, but at that point, I'm pretty sure he was just he tunnel visioned on like, how do I not die to Greven? Which he shouldn't have even had to think about because Greven should have killed him a turn earlier. We'll get to that in a second. And then he did ramp out his Niv-Mizzet really early, which was pretty cool, but he was just flooded with lands. The way I don't really show what cards people draw, but after asking him some questions about how the game went, he just drew a bunch of lands, and that'll sometimes happen in Commander, so there's not much you can do. Then we've got Aiden playing Guy's Greven Predator Captain deck. This is not the first time we've seen the Greven deck. We actually had it in our last game being piloted by the creator, Mr. Guy Scott himself. But Aiden did a pretty good job piloting this deck, I think. We've all seen Guy pilot it quite a bit, so it's not like it's a mystery how the deck works. But he unfortunately did miss on that combat the second time he attacked Guy, that he could have paid 3 life with Hall of the Bandalord instead of using it to tap 4 black with Urborg, and that would have dealt him enough damage to have brought Guy to 21 commander damage, and he would have not needed the 3rd attack in order to kill Guy. So what may have happened there is if he would have chose me as the target a turn earlier, I might not have been able to take him down, because my deck did pretty much what Ojutai wants to do. I think I made some bad plays towards the end, like in hindsight, transmuting that Muddle the Mixture for the copy of Grand Abolisher. I just straight up wouldn't have died if I was able to Muddle the Mixture a copy of his Expansion Explosion. However, he probably wouldn't have cast that Expansion Explosion for that much, and the game was pretty inevitable at that point for the most part. But I think I could have done a lot of things better. My thinking when I did transmute Muddle the Mixture for Grand Abolisher was that I'm already super far behind the way he's set up. He's just got so much card advantage now. And in order for me to win this game, I'm going to need like a turn of no interaction. I just need to be able to get through and do what I want. And since my Conqueror's file was gone, I needed another copy of a card that said, silence on my turn, only I can play spells. So that was my thinking. It didn't work out very well, but I was overall pretty happy with Ojutai's performance. This is your first time seeing it. It's a Voltron deck. You know, it's a suit 'em up, commander carries sticks and hits the opponents with it type deck. And I think Ojutai is a really good commander for that, just because Ojutai is a pretty aggressively bodied, like is a 5/4 with flying, which is pretty sweet for a commander. And it grants card advantage, which is obviously something we look for in commanders. So when you tie those two things together, like, I think it just makes for a really good Voltron commander. And I'd love to do a deck tech on it at some point very soon. Deck techs are going to start coming out within the next week or two. So if there's anything you guys want to see, definitely let me know. I've already got some requests in the comments, and I'm starting to queue up those deck techs. Finally, Jake 1. This is, I think most seasoned Magic players are going to understand what happened as they watch this game. Jake was, for the most part, left alone for the entirety of the game. And when that happens, he's able to build resources. And then when he cast his first Fact or Fiction, I thought, hey, I could probably use Jake to help me take out Iden. And that's why I gave him the Rapid, and I tried to reward him into taking the Rapid hybridization by adding a Cultivate into the pile with Rapid. He did take that pile, but then the Mystic Sanctuary and putting it back on top. When I gave him the piles for the second Fact or Fiction, it almost didn't matter how I did it because Noxious Revival is a very good card. But by giving him the Cryptic Command and the Noxious Revival, I basically kind of nailed my own coffin shut. But he wasn't interacted with, and his deck is very powerful. That wasn't even his deck going off. It's normally much quicker than that. But when you don't touch him, his deck has a certain inevitability to it. He's going to get so much card advantage. And we're not going to be able to beat him. And that's that. So yeah, that's everyone's decks, I think. It went really well. We got maybe a couple more gameplay videos coming out before we start with stuff like deck techs and some other type of content I want to put on this channel. So that's exciting for me anyway. And then if anyone has a deck they'd like to see played, we are still in the middle of a pandemic, unfortunately. And because of that, we can't really... I have an extended circle of friends living where I live in Michigan. My local game store is big. It's a big local game store, and we have access to a huge pool of players. But unfortunately, I don't know how easy it would be to get together with them during this pandemic, especially since Commander tends to have you so close to other people. So I've got my immediate bubble that I play with of like 5 or 6 people, but I'm not going to be able to have a huge diversity of decks until a little while after this pandemic kind of starts to let us maybe go outside more often. And who knows how long that's going to be. So we're going to start to make some new decks, all of us. We're going to brew and play decks that maybe we won't even keep built just for this channel. So just thought I'd give you a heads up on that. And then, oh, if you stayed this long, stay tuned for like Friday or Saturday. I know I'm a little late to the party, but the channel does have a Double Masters regular booster box opening coming. So that's kind of cool. I'm a Commander player. I play a lot of Commander, and there's a lot of Commander stables in there. So I'm excited. I've rambled on enough. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you on the next one.